But it looks like 6:30 to me. You agree? All right, we're all set. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order, namely the April 23rd, 2018 meeting. The first item on our agenda is closed meeting. Specifically, be it resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia, hereby enters into a closed meeting for the purpose of discussing the following. Section 2.23711, consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. Opiates litigation. Second, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplinary, or resignation of specific officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. 1. Adjustment and Appeals Board. 2. Community Service Board. 3. Economic Development Authority. 4. Library Board. 5. NRV Regional Water Authority. 6. Parks and Recreation Commission. 7. Planning Commission. 8. Solid Waste Authority. 9. Virginia First Regional Industrial Facility Authority. 10. Alcohol Safety Action Program. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any
discussion?
Hello.
There were a lot of things to read on there. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Yeah.
Mr. Fitchikowski?
Aye.
Ms. DeMott?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
We're in closed meeting.
on there, you know.
Is there a motion to come out of closed meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Okay. Mr. Fitchikowski?
Aye.
Ms. DeMott?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next item on our agenda is certification of closed meeting. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.23711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1. Only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and 2. Only such public business matters that were identified in the motion conveying the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Board. And what that certification is, or what this certification is our Board's word to you that we're not discussing things we're not supposed to back in closed meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Okay. Ms. DeMott?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchikowski?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
The next item on our agenda is a moment of silence, and then after that, I would ask the County Administrator to lead us in the pledge.
Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
The next item on our agenda is presentations, recognitions, and awards. And the first item up is the Ecological and Human Health Rural Community. And we have Emily Satterwhite and Dr. Julie
Golke.
Golke. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. So we're here basically as a Virginia Tech team, and this gives our steering committee membership. Emily and I are both members, and then we also have representation from the College of Natural Resources and Environment, Corrine, COWS, as well as Vet Med, both Susan and I, and then Civil and Environmental Engineering, Lindsay Marr. And this group also has affiliates across a lot of different colleges at Virginia Tech. The main purpose of our research group was part of the kind of destination areas, if you've heard about those at Virginia Tech, to really kind of cut across a lot of disciplines and address some really pressing issues. And broadly, what we're interested in is how we can help rural communities build better ecological as well as human health arrangements. And so, because we are directly in a rural community, we felt like Virginia Tech would really be in a good position to do that in both the environmental as well as human health side. So one part of that is starting our partnership, and to do that, basically, we are inviting the Montgomery County to partner with us on this course in the fall. It's the Appalachian Studies course, and it's going to be funded through the Appalachian Regional Commission, and it's Appalachian Community Research. And really, it's an invitation to partner on student research to meet community needs. And so for this, we want to catalog residents' concerns about the Radford Arsenal, identify and review existing studies and data, conduct air sampling, and then also present findings as part of the course to the Appalachian Regional Commission in DC, and also obviously our local community partners via the web. So to kind of initiate this, we reached out to the Radford Arsenal. They were very open, and they are excited about this, and they want to keep open lines of communication, and are really willing to cooperate with us to do this initial study and research. So Pulaski County is part of this, and again, we're here to invite Montgomery County to also be part of this. As I said, Radford Arsenal, and in particular, the commander, James Scott, there was very open and welcoming to us when we were there and toured the facility and presented our aims. And this just basically says, as I had mentioned, that Pulaski County is part of this, and we want to keep everything open in terms of all the proposed objectives, methods, and findings. So what do we expect to find at the end? Again, we just want to catalog community concerns, catalog air pollutants, and then identify compelling avenues for future research. And what we're asking from you is really just being willing to meet with us, meet with some students over the fall semester, make sure that we're addressing any concerns that you're hearing, and assistance in identifying community members that we can talk with regarding this. So I think at that point we can take some questions.
I'll start off with Supervisor King.
No question.
Supervisor Fidjakowski.
I'd like to say that the day that we met with you all at the Arsenal, I was very impressed with the questions that you asked the folks there at the Arsenal. I think you're on the right track, and I think this is going to alleviate a lot of people's anxiety that live around that area. Or maybe you'll find something that we need to be more concerned about. But either way, I think it's great that you all are willing to do this, and I would hope that we would be willing to join you with that. Thank you.
Supervisor DeMonts.
Hi. Thank you both so much for being here tonight. I've attended several of the quarterly updates with the Radford Army Ammunition Plant, and am not surprised to see that their desire to be transparent and participate in this process is clear in what you've already found in your discussions with them. Two themes that have recurred over and over and over when I have been at those meetings and when I've personally met with concerned citizens have been the increased rate of thyroid cancer in the New River Valley, and also parents at Bell Spring Elementary really wanting an idea of what the air quality is there near that school because of its location relative to the Arsenal. So I'm sure you're both already aware of that, but I put that forward as two concerns that I have heard repetitively over the past few years. But thank you for doing this. I know that the community has really wanted more time to be invested in studying the outflows of the arsenal, and I'm glad that you're doing it.
Supervisor Biggs.
I'm also glad that you're doing it, and for many of the reasons that Supervisor DeMont's mentioned, because I attended a couple of the same meetings that Supervisor DeMont's attended. My question is, like, as you're going through this, like, do you like update the involved localities, or is it something at the end that you tell us, or how does that part work?
Well, I don't know that we, identify that, and we want to work with you. So however frequent you would like updates, and again, getting the students involved in that I think would be great. So if you would like, monthly updates during the fall semester, I think that would be doable. So
that's something that we could look at. Yeah, I think that would be, that would show the engagement part of it, but also the ongoing process. And I think a lot of times you approve something and you don't hear about it till the end, but that would sort of be engaging, I think, for the students and for us.
Great.
That would be part of the requirement. If the ARC were to fund us, that we would have to have this.
Thank you.
Supervisor Bone.
Julia, could you repeat what Ms. Satterwhite just said? Because she's not on tape.
So basically, a requirement from ARC is that there's multiple meetings with the community partner. So if you were to agree to be a community partner, then I think what she's saying is that we would have to at least meet like 2 or 3 times during the semester anyway. So.
Thanks. So I noticed this is a 4,000 level course, so juniors, seniors. Could anybody in the community audit this course?
Yeah.
And is there a certain limit to enrollment?
I think, yeah, why don't you come up?
Sorry, I'll be the instructor of record. In the past, the ARC has limited our enrollment to 15 because that's the amount of funds they give us for travel for students to DC. I would suggest that since Dr. Golke is helping, we could accommodate more than that. I would probably not like to see more than 25. I think it would become ungainly at that point and not be not be good for the students who are taking it as their capstone in the Appalachian Studies minor. So I would like to keep it. Right now, I believe as of the first course request, there are maybe 7 students only enrolled. So I definitely think we have some room for additional members from the community who would like to.
Are there prerequisites for the course?
I believe we have no prerequisites. Is that true? We would not encourage a student to take that class unless they had Intro to Appalachian Studies at the very least. And since it's at the 4,000 level, I would be surprised to see a student enroll in it who was not at least a sophomore. But I don't believe that the course has any prerequisites.
So could a community member audit it if they hadn't taken that basic Appalachian Studies course?
That would be fine with me. I have to admit, I'm not familiar with the way of auditing, like whether there would be a fee or how that part would work. But for my part, I would be completely willing to have somebody participate who was had not taken the intro course.
And then I agree with Supervisor Biggs, whether it's just midway through the semester and at the end of the semester, I would love them to come here so they get the experience of being, in a practical government. So I thoroughly enjoyed going to the Arsenal with you two also, like Supervisor Fichikowski. You hear so many stories about it, but when you're there, it's impressive. They're doing very interesting work. And I was very pleased to see how engaging the leadership was. And they'd like to dispel right, wrong, or indifferent what's going on in the community. So I encourage you to do your best work. Thank you.
Thank you. We can't promise to dispel in a semester with 15 undergraduates, but we will certainly get started trying to understand what we can and can't provide in terms of additional information for concerned citizens.
Thank you for everything you do.
Supervisor Shepherd.
Just one comment. I think it just makes good common sense for us to do this, to partner with you guys, just because of some of the things we've heard from the citizens. The only question I have is, who else are you partnering with? I assume Pulaski and... Is that it? Okay, that's all.
The partners, right now, we have, in order to apply, we have to have at least one community partner, and Pulaski has agreed, but we would really love to have both counties participating.
Okay, thank you.
Just a few questions. Will you need a formal resolution, a consensus from our board, a letter? What do you need from us to be a part?
A letter would be sufficient for our application packet.
Okay.
By April 30th, if possible.
And I know from speaking with you and from my understanding, I know that there's some wind patterns, but as Supervisor DeMott's talked about, the Bellevue School is something that we've heard a lot from the community, and I know that may be out of the wind, I guess, areas of the way the traditional wind path or wind directions go. But I know that would help dispel some myths potentially as far as doing testing there.
If you would like to put us in touch with the school board, we'd love to partner with Bellevue Elementary. We had reached out to them earlier, but I think that with your endorsement and encouragement, that they would feel more comfortable with that.
Okay. Did that spark any other additional questions? Thank you both very much for giving us this opportunity to partner with you. I mean, Virginia Tech is known around the world, especially when everything happened in Michigan, and the thoughts of being able to either find out if we do have problems that have to be addressed or whether we dispel some myths, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Can we do a consensus to have them?
That's what I was going to ask. Can we do it during presentation? Ask for a consensus.
Right now.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All right. So there's consensus to draft a letter asking to go forward and partnering with them. Thank you.
We'll get that out this week.
Next item is Dr. Tina Smuth will be making a presentation about hazards and public safety threats at Mountain Valley Pipeline. Thank you. Didn't see you coming up.
Snuck up here.
Thank you all very much for the letter requesting odorant in the pipeline. That was huge, and we'll see if the other counties follow through with that. So I've spent a few years focusing on what are the threats to us in our community from this large pipeline infrastructure. So here we go. This is a transmission pipeline. These are the largest natural gas pipelines in the nation. And 42 inches, I believe, is the biggest. I haven't heard of one larger than that. Transmission pipelines have multiple health threats, which include damage to water supplies, air pollution, threat of rupture and explosion. There are multiple social impacts when you have a lot of temporary workers, a huge number of temporary workers coming into communities. There's permanent environmental degradation and environmental justice issues. I'm not sure that this isn't showing exactly what I have on this slide. One of the things that multiplies all the risks is that it's traveling through a lot of karst terrain in this area, and karst terrain is terrain that has sinkholes, caves, a a lot of underground water flow. Water can be connected up to 6 miles apart in the subterranean area. Dye trace studies have linked water sources up to 6 miles apart, and people that are trying to protect themselves in case their household springs or wells are contaminated would like to do legally defensible water testing before the pipeline is installed, and then later if they think there's problems with their wells. But legally defensible water testing is $2,200, both before and after, and that's not something most of our rural residents feel like they can afford. This is actually a picture somewhere in the Mount Tabor area. We have beautiful caverns, underground waterways, and one of the things that will really jeopardize this is blasting that they'll have to do. There's a lot of bedrock in the area, and with blasting comes multiple chemicals that can easily enter our water supplies. And these aren't chemicals that you want to be drinking. And you can't be testing for them every day to know if they're there after they've done blasting. So it's kind of a hidden threat to us. This is a picture up in West Virginia. It just illustrates how bad erosion and sedimentation can be, even associated just with the laydown yards and some of the work yards. They typically site these near waterways. We don't know why. The one that's down in the Elliston area is very close to the North Fork of the Roanoke River, and we expect there will be sedimentation into that from that large laydown yard. This is a picture of the Beckley, West Virginia pipe yard. There are thousands of pipes here. We've heard the lead engineer, Robert Cooper, testifying in court that MVP is suffering irreparable damage due to delays because they purchased this 5 months before FERC ever approved the pipeline project. And the epoxy coating that's so colorful that you can see is degrading in the sun, and this protects the steel. So here we are biting our nails, worried that we're going to be getting pipe that could have some early corrosion. Staging areas and laydown yards are dirty places. This is a staging area for a compressor station up in Wessel County, West Virginia. So this is a little busier than the ones we'll have in our area, but we know the one that's been shifted from Franklin County to Pittsylvania County, Mountain Valley confessed that there will be 1,000 to 1,400 trucks in and out over a 24-hour period during the height of construction. We've got a laydown yard in the Elliston area. I know there's at least one, and I think 2 now up in Giles. So what you get here is emissions from all the vehicles, diesel spills, and quite a bit of dust and air pollutants, particulate matter. So happening soon in our county will be all the brush burning from where they've already timbered. And the burning will go on pretty much through the night. I guess they can start at like 4 p.m. And then they can't add more to it by 3 a.m. But they won't be using the blower devices that make it burn cleanly and rapidly. So we will have tons of air pollutants, but particulate matter from all the smoke. And we've already talked to one person that lives right on the route saying, I can't breathe when there's smoke in the air, I have a lung condition. If they're mixing any poison ivy into this, anybody that's allergic to that, this can be a serious respiratory threat to them if they're inhaling smoke with poison ivy particulate matter. The large fleet of trucks has already started. We were out looking at Mount Tabor Road, I guess just yesterday, and already the edges of the asphalt are crumbling into places where they've been moving equipment. This goes on 24 hours, day and night, noise, light, truck brakes. Wherever there's connection between the 42-inch big pipe and other infrastructure, there are gas leaks. That's known nationwide. We do have a metering station which actually off-gasses quite a bit with the Roanoke County, the Roanoke gas tap that's down at the Montgomery-Roanoke border. Natural gas contaminants are many. There's the BTEX group of carcinogens. This gas is filled with radon. It's coming from very deep within the earth. That's where radon lives, so it's got an extremely high radon content, and it will be depositing radioactive lead deposits throughout this pipeline. There's no decommissioning plan specifically for the pipeline. After its 25 or 30-year lifetime, it's still going to be in our county, buried in our county with deposits in it. And there can be unidentified compounds that are coming from deep in the earth where they're fracking this. Pipelines that are built starting in about 2005 are failing at 6 times the rate of the previous 2 decades. This means leaks, ruptures. The head of one of the Pipeline Material Safety Administration, Robert Hall, said that he thinks this is due to too fast build-out. With too fast build-out, you're using new technologies, and with new technologies come new types of failures, which you can't predict until they start occurring. And then you can adapt to that. But you can see there's an enormous difference between the number of failure rates from the 1900s up until starting in 2005. Pipeline incidents. This is what keeps me awake at night. MVP will be inspecting this pipe internally once every 7 years. They've put that in writing in the final environmental impact statement. They will only be looking for corrosion. They won't be doing any cleaning through the pipe. Signs of leaks can be very subtle, especially if they're underground. I've talked to cavers in the area who are saying, oh my gosh, what if we're in a cave and you've got odorless, colorless gas that you won't know is there, and it could kill us. There is no odorant plan for the Mountain Valley Pipeline, and thank you all for calling that to the attention of very important people. Karst is known to collapse. Sinkholes collapse. They're building across a sinkhole on Mount Tabor Road. We looked at it yesterday. It's a pretty good sinkhole. Looks like they put some great big boulders down in it to get started. But in Kentucky, there were quite a few sinkhole collapses. This one was in 2014, and 2 homes were destroyed when this sinkhole collapsed and the pipeline blew up that was going through it. The Sissonville, West Virginia pipeline explosion in 2012, some of you all may remember this one. It burned up about 800 feet of I-77. It totally destroyed 3 homes, but miraculously nobody was killed with this. And this was just a 20-inch pipe. The inspector said that the corrosion would have been noticed if the inspections had been done on it, and this could have been prevented. Mainline valves are the part of the pipeline that would actually shut down the flow. They're varying miles apart. So if there's an incident and they're shutting down the gas, we've got 13.4 miles of gas that would burn off between our mainline valve in Montgomery County and the next shut-off valve that's downstream. This slide says that 51 to 80% of pipeline leaks, their ruptures, ignite. I have a couple of scientists in related fields that have looked at the data, looked at the different ways of calculating it, and they said it's more like 80 to 100% of leaks are going to ignite and rupture and explode. This is a picture taken from a GIS map. You can see to the left is Preston Forest. That's the dark brown. The yellow line is the pipeline, and the orange spaces on either side of that are the interior blast zone, and then outside of that is, I think it's kind of euphemistically called the evacuation zone, but that's the burn zone where there would be a lot of devastation also. There just wouldn't be the crater like there would be in the middle if this ruptures. So this is a conservative model that shows the whole impact width would be about 1.4 miles. There are other ways to calculate this based on other mathematical models and the size of the pipeline that put it closer to 3 miles, about 2.8 miles. So what you have in Preston Forest are dead-end streets that may need to exit through that evacuation zone, the burn zone, if in fact there was a rupture in the pipeline close to that development. We've got many things stacked against us in this area that could result in pipeline rupture. We're in a high seismic activity zone. That increases all other risks of this pipeline. We've had 2 earthquakes in 2017. Steep slopes, poor soils, karst terrain, all combine to jeopardize the integrity of this pipeline. This is a picture on the West Virginia side of Peters Mountain where the Columbia Gas Pipeline corridor, they've never been able to really control the erosion and sedimentation. You can see the lower part of this picture shows actually a cascade of debris down that pipeline corridor. The temporary workers, we may not have many of them in this county. I've learned a lot more about our county. We've got some zoning and regulations. So I'm not sure where the temporary workers will be living. They're not all bad people. Many of them will travel with their families. We may see an increase in school attendance with them bringing in their children. But you do have to watch out that they aren't camping out in areas and creating sanitation problems, etc. Unfortunately, crime does go up in areas of big pipeline infrastructure. And I worry about this. When they began timbering along Craig Creek Road, there were multiple break-ins. And I had heard this from somebody connected with the Mountain Valley Watch program, and then talked to a friend who's a resident down there. And their sheds, whether they were locked or not, many of them were broken into and power tools were taken. So there were quite a few thefts that occurred. You know, was it the people timbering for Mountain Valley? I have no idea, but it correlated time-wise. This is a picture. You all are probably familiar with the diesel fuel spill that shut down Peterstown, West Virginia public water supply. This was in 2014 or 15. For 2 weeks, they couldn't use their public water at all because of a diesel spill along that Columbia gas line corridor. It was just a maintenance truck. It unfortunately had a fuel spill, and it ended up in their main water source. I was talking to somebody the other day from West Virginia that said Peterstown, the water treatment plant, has continued to have some problems ever since that spill, and I'm not sure what that involves. That's it. Any questions?
Start off with Supervisor Fidzikowski.
Appreciate you coming and giving this presentation to folks here that came. I also appreciate you meeting with me and showing me the presentation. You've given us a lot to consider, that's for sure. Thank you very much for coming.
Supervisor DeMotts.
I don't have any questions. I do appreciate the information, and as I'm sure you've heard me say many, many times, my fundamental objection to the pipeline is for environmental reasons. I personally do not feel like we should be chemically extracting fracked gas from the earth, because I think the repercussions of that will be long-standing. But off my soapbox on that, I really appreciate you coming. This is not very encouraging information, and I appreciate your continued advocacy on behalf of the community and your neighbors. Thank you.
Supervisor Biggs.
Well, I also want to thank you for the opportunity to have seen this prior to tonight, but I think this is important because now people can view it all over the county. I've been against this since the very get-go, as you all know, and I have such concern about the water and the safety issues, and I'm very concerned about the Preston Forest issue. When you showed me that map, I haven't gotten that map out of my brain. And I think it was interesting that the MVP company was interested in how their employees would be cared for if something happened to them. Whereas if you had a catastrophe in that Preston Forest area, it's our citizens. And there didn't seem to be any kind of communication or plan in place about that. So thank you for bringing this, and I think that the only thing we can do is just keep being on guard. And you all have been wonderful in providing the information and being on guard. Thank you so much.
Supervisor Bone?
I have a couple of questions. How many people have actually done the legally defensible water testing that you know of? 3. Do you know if any others are planning?
If we get the money in a GoFundMe account, and that would be only in Elliston. It's too expensive for people to do.
For the 3 that have actually happened right now, are they kind of spread out, or are they kind of concentrated?
They're only in Mount Tabor. You have to have at least 3 to sue for a water system out there, and that's what we got.
Tina, can you repeat what
Yes, it
Linda's?
takes 3 people to join together to sue so that Mountain Valley would provide a water system.
Well, they wouldn't provide it, it'd have to be sued. Somebody would, yeah.
Linda can't be heard on tape, so if you could repeat what she says.
Linda's saying it takes 3 people to do a suit if the water is ruined, and they need to be close to the neighborhood.
And so they're in the Mount Tabor area. Okay.
Mountain Valley did request to do water testing, but it was a very limited panel of materials and not the ones that could be the biggest problem for household water supply.
Getting to the laydown yard and the truck traffic, 1,000 to 1,400 within a 24-hour period, is there any reason for us to think that it won't be that much?
I'm hoping it won't be in our laydown yard, and it depends on how they're using laydown yards. Some of them are more, Quonset hut meeting places, car parking, some material storage, and others are a lot of material storage with in and out over 24-hour periods while they're working. So I hope ours isn't like that.
Can you talk to me a little bit about that radioactive lead? I must have missed that piece when you made the presentation to Supervisor Biggs.
So, gas is coming from 2 to 3 miles below the surface of the Earth. Radon levels are extremely high down under our Earth. So fracked gas itself has a lot of radon in it. In fact, some homes have to have radon mitigation systems, not just for radon that comes in through their basement, but in areas where they're using natural gas that's very high in radon. So that radon actually causes some lead that's carried through. Natural gas is not completely pure. I mean, that's one reason they have compressor stations. They're blowing different contaminants out of it. So radon will cause lead to become radioactive. That falls out and is deposited along the base of the pipeline. It's a radioactive sludge that develops. There is an allied chemical to lead, polonium, which also is radioactive, but it breaks down faster, so it won't leave that virtually permanent residue in the pipe.
But would that be more likely nearer where they're actually putting the gas into the pipeline versus would lead really travel hundreds of miles and happen in Montgomery County?
Yes, yes, this can happen throughout the pipeline. Granted, more may be deposited closer to the source, but you're talking about 1,480 pounds per square inch, pressurized gas. it's moving fairly rapidly, and we expect it to be deposited throughout this. I mean, it's known in the industry. It's called tenorm, technologically enhanced, naturally occurring radioactive material. And if this pipeline is decommissioned and removed, then they have to have experts, tenorm experts, come in hazmat radioactive protective gear to remove this.
But can they not remove it when it's decommissioned?
Yes, but Mountain Valley goes away once the pipeline is established and running. And we've not been able to pin anybody down as to who would be actually doing the decommissioning work later. I mean, they're just really interested in getting this built and using it, but there's no details about that. I've also spent 2 weeks communicating with Pipeline Hazardous Material and Safety Administration through the Department of Transportation and through Virginia State Corporation Commission, trying to get to the bottom as to this odorant, whether it's required or not. And they've done nothing but bounce me back and forth with no answers for 2 weeks. I really tried to find out more about that for you.
Thank you for trying that. Your point about the mainline valves, I'm assuming they're electronic. Is that correct?
Apparently, their description is that they can be shut manually or remotely from their monitoring site in Pennsylvania. I don't think they're going to teach the neighbors how to shut them down. But there's supposed to be a field inspector that goes with each portion of the pipeline called a spread that lives in the area that could respond if needed. But you know our mountains in our area. I can't imagine anybody getting to a mainline valve in a hurry in the middle of a storm or something and manually turning it off. And you hope it works from Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. And the mainline valves are 10 miles apart?
They're varying distances apart. They can be up to 13.4 miles apart in our area. There's no mainline valve in Roanoke per se. There's 2 in the south part of our county in a neighborhood that they've been worried about that I think has one road in and out, and there are a lot of houses. And then there's nothing until Franklin County.
Can you go back to the map that Supervisor Biggs was referring to of Preston Forest? So yes. If I recall correctly, the road at the very top of that mountain, to the left of the orange zone.
Jefferson Forest Lane?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there is no exit. That's a dead-end street. So if
they can only exit towards the pipeline if there's a problem.
And the only exit that they have is in the orange zone.
Correct. That's the Preston Forest Drive that comes down.
So it's not only that road, but the one right below it.
Correct.
And the third one down also?
The third one down could potentially do a U-turn and come down Kierman.
Okay. So all the residents on those first 2 roads are at risk of not being able to be rescued.
Not being able to drive a car out the road. They would have to try to escape, I guess, on foot, heading west.
And then the street that goes down the mountain is in the orange zone. And that is clearly, if that's the incineration zone, or is the red the incineration zone?
They called this pale peach color the evacuation zone, but they also describe it as an area where everything would be burned. Typically everything is burned in that area, so that's why I sort of say evacuation zone with quotes.
So there are quite a few houses on that one road that goes from the top of the mountain down. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not even to be said all the Mount Tabor housing along Mount Tabor, because when that pipeline takes a turn to the right, it's including all of Mount Tabor Road. Am I correct?
Yes. Well, not all of Mount Tabor.
No, I mean
Road.
that section.
Until it crosses and heads over to Catawba Road.
And how many people in that picture, give me a percentage, do you think know that they're within that peach color or red?
I think most of them don't know.
Would you say 50%? Would you say 25%?
No, I know that one of our, less than 25%. I know one of our people that was up talking with folks up in Creston Forest talked to a family that had bought a home within the last year, and they had no idea anything about really the pipeline, and they were horrified. So, you know, we've done the best we can to get word out to people, but I mean, you know, there's a fine line between educating people and terrifying them about where they live, and so we've tried to be sensitive to different sides of that.
Also, I want to thank you for meeting with Supervisor Biggs and myself and Supervisor Vijikowski at a different time a couple weeks ago. That was very informative, and you allowed us to ask a lot of different questions at that time. Thank you so much to you and to Miss Majors back there and your whole crew.
Well, we thank all of you that have been willing to tromp up and down the mountains and look at what we're talking about. Luckily, we didn't lose anybody in the process, but I'm sure we'll still take anybody that wants to at the county for a tour there to show them what we're talking about. So thank you very much.
Are they done with all their felling?
All their filing?
Felling. Felling.
Not even in Montgomery County, this gentleman still has trees to fell here.
So they were supposed to be done with that by the end of March or the end of April?
March.
March.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, to them. And people are having trouble selling some of their really valuable logs. There's just not enough people available to buy them and haul them off. And then you look at all that money, that wasted timber that'll be cut up in small pieces and hauled off.
I just have a question for Marty, I guess. So what are we to do when they're not following the rules of, they were supposed to be done with felling at the end of March? Nothing? We can't do anything, or do you know?
FERC regulates them, so it's up to FERC. Also, some of those deadlines.
Can you speak into your...
I think some of those deadlines applied to, not to the whole project area, but to areas where there's endangered species identified. So, but I think they were late in some of those areas getting out of. Other areas did not have that same deadline. So you can't really, with a broad brush, say that they had to get out there and finish off tree felling by that date.
So they didn't designate which areas, so we're not aware of which areas they were supposed to be done by the end of March?
Not specifically, no, but that, I know those areas where endangered species were identified, and you know, they're talking about certain bat species that...
Do you...
But even FERC didn't know which areas were. So when we complained, it didn't matter. Probably they have lost after first. So all we've got is evidence of what they haven't done. That's why I said it doesn't matter.
Can you repeat that, Tina?
We couldn't determine the rules clearly, Neither could FERC. We were communicating with different agencies and FERC about where can they be cutting now and where can't they, and they just cut. It was never fully clarified anywhere.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Supervisor Shepherd.
I don't have any more questions. I just want to say thank you for all your work, everybody. I mean, I know you put a lot of time into it.
There's a lot of people behind me in this work. Okay, thank you.
Supervisor King?
No questions.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is a public hearing. In regards, the following public hearing was advertised pursuant to law in the New River Valley section of the Roanoke Times on April the 8th and again on April the 15th, both in 2008. Specifically, amend the Articles of Incorporation of the Montgomery Regional Solid Waste Authority to extend term of user agreement between the authority and participating jurisdictions from June 30th, 2025 to June 30th, 2040. The agreement provides for the terms of the members of the Board of Directors of Montgomery Regional Solid Waste Authority to be staggered rather than run concurrently by amending Section 4 of the authority's Articles of Incorporation to provide the terms of office of the five members of the board of the authority beginning July the 1st, 2018 as follows. Now, Marty, do I need to read the rest of it?
No.
Okay. Now, I don't believe anybody has signed up for this public hearing, but you don't have to have signed up if you want to speak on this portion of this public hearing. I'm seeing, yes, I see somebody come, or a couple of people coming forward. Again, this is not the general public address. This is on the changes and amendments as to the Solid Waste Authority.
Yes, sir.
Please state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
My name is Douglas White, 760 Triangle Street, Blacksburg, Virginia. So the Solid Waste Authority, for me as a contractor, I came back to the New River Valley in 2015, and there were some issues that had played out. Mr. Meadows and I had a briefing about it. I also briefed with their board. It comes a little discerning to me when we create an agency that doesn't hold their own meetings. They don't come for their own meetings when they're here at the Board of Supervisors. And historically, as a person who needs to dispose of waste stream in this county, we're asked to provide a manifest when we enter the landfill. That manifest is a request that I honor the rules and regulations. And part of what was revealed in 2015 was that the MRSWA was using the Cloyd's Mountain permit number. I check periodically the manifest form to make sure that it's not Cloyd's Mountain number that's on the manifest form. I also check to make sure that the legal entity that we formed as a group of Christiansburg, Blacksburg, Virginia Tech, and Montgomery County stays the entity that we actually created. And I would ask that you do your part to make sure that the authority acts as the authority. It's a component of government. It should be having its own meetings, and it should be having its own announcements to the people. If you look today on the MRSW site, I don't think that you'll find anything about this happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the public hearing on this issue? Seeing no one else coming forward, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. The next item up on our agenda is public address. Each citizen will have the opportunity to come and address the board for 5 minutes. We ask that you state your name and address. Again, this is a time for our board to listen to you. And is there anyone who would, I don't believe anyone signed up, but is there anyone who would like, Ms. Albritton, please come forward and state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Phyllis Albritton, 1003 Highland Circle, Blacksburg, Virginia. And I just wanted to publicly thank both of the presenters that we had this evening. Many of us have been working on the Bradford Arsenal open burning issue for a long time, and my prayer was that a study would be done by someone and I cannot thank you all enough, and I'm really hoping it will make a difference for those in the community who are truly deeply affected by it. especially the Bellevue School area and other areas. And then Dr. Smuzz's presentation, I know you've heard from me before, but the whole thing makes me so angry, and they say they're going to bring, give our people jobs, and then we saw the trailers, then we saw the people coming in, and it's just such a hoax. It makes me very angry, and I'll be gone. I'm 80, but so what it's going to do for our future and Mother Earth is really horrible. So I appreciate all of your concern about this issue and the position you've taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other citizens who would like to come forward and address the board? I see multiple people getting up, so I'll ask you to come and sit on the second row. Sir, you were actually the first one who stood up, so please state your name and address again, and you have 5 minutes.
Once again, it's Douglas White, 760 Triangle Street. For 12 years, I've come to this board as well as the Town of Blacksburg board to discuss a pump station that's located in Windsor Hills that's owned by the Town of Blacksburg. I'd like to read for you today some documentation. It's not original work product, but engineers supersede. The pump station, constructed in 1992, is a duplex suction pump installed in an 8-foot diameter wet well, which conveys sanitary sewer to the top of the mountain. The only major equipment change in installation was the replacement of pump number 2 with the pump from Shenandoah Pump Station 1 in 2015, when that existing pump station or pump caught on fire and burned up inside the well house. On January 2nd, the level floats did not signal the lead and lag pumps to operate when the wet well level rose above the float heights. The high level float also did not signal alarming system to tell the Town of Blacksburg that the pump had failed. The staff had noted upon arrival the day after, and the day after was 38 hours later, that the signaling system and the phone tel log that gets to the Town of Blacksburg was not in operation. They estimated initially 62,000. There's some funny math going on that says it's 45 or 55,000. Regardless, there was about 60,000 gallons of sewage that was released at the Windsor Hills pump station. A report that was issued at the beginning of April suggests that they didn't have evidence that it hit the creek channel. Well, their own photographs in the report actually show it sitting in the creek channel. So I don't know how that happens. We got to do something about the Windsor Hills pump station. There's still development pressures from 27 acres associated with the Poff family. I think the Poffs ought to get a development. There's a new one coming for Clay Street. It's going to be, what, 37, 39 townhomes. It's going to connect into the Windsor Hills pump station. What are we going to do about this system that has been failing for 12 years? And I've told everybody that it's failing, right? It wasn't a sinkhole until I brought a physical photograph of a sinkhole, right? And then it couldn't be argued that it wasn't a sinkhole. But some people still argued it, right? But it's now in the engineering report as a sinkhole, 30 feet away from the Windsor Hills pump station. So when your group down here talks about karst, I've been living with karst, 12 years of living with karst, understood karst. Carol Schwobel's well is 1,200 feet away from the Windsor Hills pump station, but it's 200 feet lower than the pump station sits on the earth. So when we talk about karst and aquifer supplies, the water, and I want to get to this part of the report, it's really telling, right? So they lost this sewage and they don't know where it went, but 10 gallons per minute went into the pump station and 17 gallons per minute leaked from the gravity-fed sewer system that's in Windsor Hills, right? So more of it's leaking out of the system than is actually going into the pump station when the pump station is not working. We've been arguing for 12 years that during heavy inundation rains that the sewage system is inundated with water. So if it can flow out, it can flow in, right? So I didn't create the work product. I asked that you guys ask for the data set. If you don't have it, I'll provide it. But this is what 12 years of work's about, right? And we ask that you work with the Town of Blacksburg. It's outside your jurisdiction now. You got a 27-acre buffer, but nobody's doing anything about it, right? And I get marginalized every time that I come here. Nobody wants to speak to me. Catch me after the meeting. I'll bring you up to speed. Anybody? I asked the town council, same exact thing. The new mayor, I asked for anyone on the town council to meet with me. Nobody wants to discuss this. right? So as we have this effect with the pipeline coming through our community, we also have the effect of human sewage going into the people's drinking wells. And we need to do something about it, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am? Please state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Margaret Ralston at 2124 Mount Tabor Road, and I apologize I didn't hear the very beginning part of today's meetings and presentations, but most of it looked pretty familiar, and there's actually some worse stories going on. Just looking on the internet today, I was seeing videos of these aerial photographs and photos where people have taken videos just walking along, and our worst fears are definitely here in terms of MVP not caring about runoff, and there's a parking area somewhere on some road, probably near Newport, it's what it looked like, but maybe not. Anyway, it's almost level, and the water was just pouring out muddy into the streams. And they showed the road was already broken right next to this inlet for a driveway into this MVP authorized access area. And nobody seemed to care. There wasn't any provision whatsoever right from the get-go. There was no provision whatsoever to slow this sediment, which was clearly going to happen. It's terrifying when you look at the videos of them going up the slopes near Newport and Mount Tabor, going straight up. Right now, the only thing holding that soil are the roots left over from the trees that have now been murdered and the dead bodies of the trees lying across. That's all that's stopping the erosion. There's not going to be a really good provision for it. We need to, the county needs to be applying for grants to get personnel to go out and inspect. I know we don't have it in the budget to do this ourselves, but we need to be demanding from DEQ that we get the money to hire people ourselves. The same thing is true of this water system this fellow was just talking about. Same kind of problems occur. I mean, I've been on septic systems in the past, so septics and so forth, and obviously it's worse at the community sewage treatment. One of the things MVP was arguing about our water was, well, your sewer systems aren't really great. You've got septic systems, so what are you worried about? You already got polluted wells, you already got polluted water. Because of this, well, this doesn't help our battle against MVP if they've got stuff from a failing water treatment system. MVP is now, I was listening to the Jake brakes. Fortunately, there weren't very many of them on these gravel trucks going down Mount Tabor Road today, but it's going to get worse as more trucks come through. There was, excuse me, I'm looking here. When Dr. Smooth was talking about the statistics on the blow up from the leaks, back when the meeting was held at, I think it's called Days Inn now, the old Vickers Switch place, I was followed. This guy was following me around. It turns out he was the engineer, the lead engineer who was put on the stand in Monroe County when somebody was trying to keep people from surveying. And when I saw him up there, I remembered this man's comments. His comment when he did talk to me, because I was busy being upset about leaks getting into caves and then showing up somewhere where somebody lit their barbecue and it might blow up because we couldn't smell it and so forth. And this man just said to me, he said, ma'am, you don't have to worry about this. If it leaks, it's just going to blow up. I mean, this was the lead engineer from MVP, and that's been in my mind ever since. So he is clearly thinking that this, I think it's either 2.3 billion cubic feet or 3.2 billion cubic feet per day coming through. If we're at 10 to 13 miles of pressure coming through, if something breaks, it is going to blow up. So we need more fire equipment. We need to have a plan, a really good evacuation plan in effect. Back a couple of years ago, somebody said on the board said there was enough fire equipment. We don't have enough firefighting people to deal with this. Right now, when there's a fire, the thing is, we'll get extra people coming in from the next community over. There's no time for that. You've got to have people standing by that as soon as that 10 to 13 miles of gas burns off to get in and rescue whoever you still can. But they have to stand by and watch it. That there's nothing to do, to do but wait for it to burn off. So there's so many things we need to be applying for grants for and should already have in the works, because this is here, these guys aren't going away, and if the thing does happen to be killed and stopped, great, then you can return the grant money. But thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board during public address? Seeing no one else coming forward, I'll go ahead and close public address. There is an addendum.
Yeah, 2 items this evening, yes.
Yes. One in regard to add a public hearing for APCO in regards to the Kipps Elementary School and an easement. And the other item is a proclamation to add to new business proclaiming May 6th through 12th as National Travel and Tourism Week. And so, one, is there a motion regarding?
So moved.
And is there a second? Any discussion about adding this, not voting on these, but actually adding these as an addendum? No discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Okay. Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next item is a consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
I lost my vote. Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next item on our agenda is the new business. Specifically, item A, agreement to amend the Articles of Incorporation with the Montgomery, the Solid Waste Authority, and to extend the term of user agreement. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion.
I just had a question. How did this all come up?
They're wanting to straddle.
The end of the user agreement is
So this is
approaching.
just a, okay.
And so they just thought, let's get ahead of it.
Okay, gotcha.
And let's go ahead and extend it out. And of course, we weren't the only members to be notified and have to approve it, so.
And if I can add to that, I know the attorneys for the Solid Waste Authority have been working with the county attorney to make sure all the language was as it should be, so it's...
Yeah, and the other item, of course, is the term limits.
Right.
So that all the directors don't, their term limits end on the same date.
Right.
So it's
you have
staggered.
staggered and then you have
like we are.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you.
Any other discussion?
So basically what we're doing with this vote is agreeing to stagger terms of their membership on their board of directors and to extend our user agreement.
That's correct.
Okay.
From 2025 to 2040.
40. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? There's a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next on our agenda is item B, recognition of Montgomery County Public Schools sports and academic state championships.
Jennifer. I put together a small presentation that being passed around, and it'll be in public record, and Jen's going to be my clicker tonight.
You guys only get one to share.
Oh, you need another one?
Yeah,
we
do you
share?
have any more?
Nope.
I can share.
Got it.
Oh, Greg doesn't get one.
I got it. I can see the big screen.
The objective, this is when I learned that granted, I'm from Blacksburg, so I don't pay attention to everything that goes on in Christiansburg, but I did know that Christiansburg wrestling team was pretty outstanding, but when I heard that they've won state championships 17 years in a row, I felt that our board could recognize them and or similar teams because that is incredible. So, I wanted to include sports teams, including individual athletes if they get to the state level, win at the state level, academic and club teams, and individual achievements academically. Next slide. Why? Because it fosters strong relationships among students, families, faculty, and the community, and creates a positive school culture where students feel valued. Awards do not only acknowledge success, they recognize many other qualities: ability, struggle, effort, and above all, excellence. While preparing students to be good citizens, and I think this is why I want to do it at this level instead of just leaving it. They are already being recognized on the school board level. While we are preparing our students to be good citizens and contributing members of society, promoting and celebrating their success shows students that we care. By being proud of the students that we serve and we serve them, amazing things will be fostered within our community. Next slide. So here are some ideas. I'm sorry, who should we recognize? The students. And I also think, other than public school students personally, private schools, as well as homeschool kids, if they get to state levels and beyonds within their categories. But invite one team at a time. I'd prefer that we don't have like 5 teams that have gotten to the state championships, taking all of the Board of Supervisors' time, but 1 per meeting. Any team that has won 5 or more state championships in a row, or achieved the highest level possible at the state level or equivalent or beyond. Any team that has won their very first state championship. I can remember my younger son was part of the Blacksburg tennis team 2-3 years ago, and they had been to state championships, had never won, and they won, and it was incredible. And then any individual who has won an individual event at the state level, I think they should be recognized too. In other words, for example, I'm not quite sure, Supervisor King, but I believe that Auburn, at least girls track, maybe won their state championship, and an individual on the team won a race or state championship for something. And I would hope that they would all come one night so that we could, that was their first state championship that they had won, and their first individual, I think, that they won. So I thought that was it's pretty huge accomplishment when a team or an individual accomplished that for the first time. Next slide. How should we recognize them? We should contact the coaches to coordinate a date so that the team, coaches, parents, the school principal, and any other school faculty, and sometimes school superintendent and school board chair can attend. Ask coaches for specific wording for certificates. Have it as the first agenda item where the chair will greet and congratulate them. I think speaking to them, the fact that the county wants great citizens and things like that. Have the coach speak briefly about the team, its history, and its accomplishments. Have the team captain or designee speak about their accomplishments. I think that's key. Having the students actually speak in a forum like this, I think, would be quite special. And then in this instance, if we were talking about Auburn for their first state championship, Supervisor King might say a few special words to the team. Hopefully we would create a special Montgomery County certificate for each team member and the coaches, and then call each team member up to be recognized and shake their hands, give a certificate, and then the coaches also, and then take pictures of the team. And so the last slide basically is a picture of a team that a friend of mine, their daughter was part of a team that won national level, and this Board of Selectmen up in Connecticut did a really nice little ceremony for these group of girls in this instance, and I think that this Board of Supervisors could do something similar, and it would have a really fantastic impact on these young adults and their achievements, and hopefully spur them on to more greatness. Any questions?
I'll start off with Supervisor DeMont, if I follow my chart correctly.
I think this is fairly repetitive over what the school board's already doing for the teams, isn't it?
The coaches, I believe the principals are the ones that are actually speaking, and then the students aren't called up individually, and I'm not sure if they get individual certificates. And I know that the coaches don't.
Right. So. And the only reason I bring that up is because we're talking about school-related stuff. So I wonder if this might be a more appropriate activity, because I like the idea. I think it's great. So but I just wonder if it might be more appropriate to occur at school board meetings as opposed to the business meetings of this board.
So when the school board does it, they have all the winter teams. The last time that it happened was all of the winter teams at once. And I'm specifically talking about teams that have won state championships 5 years in a row, some special recognition. And the Christiansburg wrestling team was talked about being special, but I think having one more step of special recognition could be quite valuable for these students.
That's all for now.
Supervisor Biggs.
Okay, so let me get this straight. So you're talking about the team would have had to have won at least 5 state championships in a row, or a first state championship, or an individual who has won an individual event at the state level. See, I've attended the school board meetings for a long time, and I know what they do there. All right, so if you're looking at this here, are you thinking it would be sort of, it's just going to be a select group of people? So it wouldn't be that every time our board had a meeting, there would be a group that you would go through this whole process with?
Correct. I don't expect that to happen. I mean, I thought back about the Blacksburg track team several years ago when one after another year they won state championships and stuff like that. They would have gotten to this level, but other than the wrestling team, I don't know of any other team currently that has won at least five in a row.
Do you think it would create any extra work that we would have staff doing that they aren't currently doing? Or is it you're thinking that basically once you get the certificates, I mean, who would coordinate with the coaches and all of that? Like, how would all that happen?
I would hope that Craig would do that.
Okay. Alrighty. I guess, all right, that's what I'm thinking
But
about
I'm
right
more
now.
than happy to do that.
Yeah, I'm just,
for as long as I'm
just
on
trying
board.
to get it all straight in my brain. Yeah, okay. I don't think I have any more right now, Chris. I think I'm okay.
Skip over Supervisor Shepherd.
I agree. I think it's a little bit repetitive. And another issue I think I have is the 5-year. And you're talking about recognizing students, and they're only in high school 4 years. So technically, you could have a kid go through and win 4 and not get an award. So I'm not sure that's exactly how it should be done, but and I'm kind of along the lines that we should leave it to the school board myself. I think that's their business, and I mean, maybe after 20 years, okay? They went 20 times or something. I don't know. Just doesn't, I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
Supervisor
That's all I'm
King.
asking, is to think about
I think we discussed this, about 3 times. And it's a good idea. Don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking you over there, but I think Mary brought up year before last, she wanted to recognize in Blacksburg, and everybody said, you know, let the school board do it.
Supervisor Fichkowski?
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
You ain't comment.
Do you have any comments?
I don't have any comments either.
Would you sit back then? Let us do it.
I'll say this. When I first got on the board, I had a very similar idea, and Bill Brown pulled me aside and said, Chris, we've had about 3 meetings that went on to 11 o'clock. And you don't want to repeat exactly what the school board's doing. And because I saw some of the kids winning championships and the like, and I thought about recognizing them, but that is really what the school board does on a regular basis. The other thing is, when you start talking about, and one of the bullet points was individual champions. So my son ran track, and you will have, maybe on the track team won't win, but you might have 4 or 5 individuals, and if we're having each one of them speak for a couple of minutes, and I don't want to cut anybody off, and then I guess their coach would then potentially speak, and that's the track team. And so that does concern me about the time. And boy, this year so far, we have had our share. I think we went to 11:45 one time. And so I just worry that, 1, we're repetitive. 2, it is a lot of demand on the staff time and our time. It's not that it's a bad idea. I just don't know about the time aspect of things. And so I looked at Bill and I said, okay, I'm going to trust you. And I think he was right when he told me that. And we do recognize our recreation teams because they're our rec department. And we do recognize them a little bit differently. And we do send letters of acknowledgement to state championship teams. But that's it's not that it's a bad idea. That's just where I'm at.
I got a question.
Sure.
So, Sarah, what you wanted us to do is sort of take this is sort of your idea, in a draft form and think about it.
Yes.
That's all you're asking us to do.
Right. On our agenda, it basically, I think it said something like, bear with me here. Make sure.
Draft policy.
Right.
Okay. So we could sort of carry this with us and think about it, or...
It says, hereby direct staff to draft a policy for the board's consideration for recognizing Montgomery County Public School teams who win state championship in sports or academics for 5 or more consecutive years. That's what it was on our agenda. I just felt like I wanted to add some input and some thoughts to it to see if there was some opportunity there.
I think your point about trying to get to our youth, as you know, recognizing what they're doing and involving them in government and being good citizens, I think that has a lot of merit to it. But yeah, I would like to think about it. Is that where we're supposed to
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is memorandum of understanding regarding the bike sharing. At least that's what's coming up on mine, is tab C.
Yeah.
Okay, you're saying...
No, I was just saying, I didn't know if Vicki was waiting for an action on B.
I wasn't going to... Based on what Sarah had said, there was information, so there wasn't... Okay.
It says in here, approve a resolution.
And that was in there if there was a motion to come forth.
All right.
Sorry to interrupt you, Chris.
Hey, listen, I'd rather somebody try to keep me straight. In regards to memorandum of understanding regarding the bike sharing program, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
What is it?
Oh, good. I will be super happy to tell you what that is.
Hey, let's let Craig do it. He's quicker.
I'll be very quick. Bike sharing is in various spots throughout the community, namely located in the town of Blacksburg, town of Christiansburg, and on Virginia Tech's campus. There are going to be stands of bikes that people can rent and drive, use them kind of freely, turn them in at other locations. There's a very successful bike sharing program in Roanoke. It's it's just really meant to encourage people to take advantage of options for alternative transportation.
And there's no financial obligation.
And there's no financial obligation on the part of the county, because we actually will not have one of these locations outside of the 2 incorporated towns of Virginia Tech's campus. There won't be anything in the county, but it will allow people to take those bikes and then use them throughout the county, through our trails and stuff like that.
I saw that when I was in Atlanta. It was really interesting to see people park the bike and then, So, okay, now I got it. Thank you.
Any other discussions? Madam Clerk, would you please...
Was that quick enough for you, Todd?
That's quick.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fisher-Castro?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bowles?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Tab D, New Reiner Volunteer Fire Station Appropriation and Transfer of Funds. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion.
Are you going to say anything, Todd?
I'm just waiting on the shovel.
I think they're in the trunk, right, guys?
And I don't know if I wouldn't mind the county administrator if it, I hate to put you on the spot, just kind of going through how do we get to this point?
Sure. Couple of years ago, we began talking about this project, and back in 2016, the board appropriated $3.7 million for the project. As the project went into further design and review, we realized that $3.7 million was going to be a little short. Last year, when we reviewed the year-end financial position with the board, one of the items we identified for future funding was $2 million for the Roanoke Fire Station project, and that's what's back before you tonight, is to formally appropriate those funds. We have received the bids for the project, and it appears that the low bidder, with several of the alternates in the bid, is well within the budget for the project, and we're prepared to move forward once the board appropriates this additional funding.
Would like to say one thing.
Sure.
And give credit where it's due. Bill Brown, when he was on this board, he's the one that got it started.
Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fisher-Castro?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bowles?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Now, I believe, was there someone from Reiner that wished to speak or to address the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to address the board and just thank Mr. Mattis, Mr. Chairman there, Mr. Tuck, Mr. King, the rest of the board members for all your continued support. We're ecstatic to get to this point, and we really appreciate everything that you do. You know, you're constant behind the public safety in Montgomery County. We all know that, and we're just very appreciative of that. And I'd like to thank Mr. Neil Turner, the Emergency Services Coordinator, for helping us out. And Todd mentioned Mr. Brown, you know, he started with this project also. So I'd just like to thank you very much for your continued support.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is tab E, schedule a public hearing regarding an APCO easement on Kipps Elementary.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Marty, do you want to just kind of...
Yeah, I'll give, on Thursday, we got approached by Dan Baronato. What happened after the last snowstorm, there was areas along where Kipps is and some of the neighborhoods in that vicinity that lost power. And so APCO has recognized an area that they need to, that they can improve reliability. And so that's what kind of fueled this request to put in a new underground line that'll go through Kipps and that actually goes across Price's Fork Road toward the area of the fire station. And so since they approached Dan, I talked to Dan, and he advised that it will have no adverse impact on the operation of the schools because they operate the property. However, the Board of Supervisors are the owners of the property. And so under state law, you're required to hold a public hearing before you can convey an easement, unless the easement is to serve the school only, and this isn't the case. It will help the school, but it'll also help the neighborhood and the area in that vicinity. So the purpose of this resolution is to start the process and schedule a public hearing for May 29th, which is that Tuesday.
Does that spark any questions, County Attorney? I believe there's a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, with there being no further discussion, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchikowski?
Aye.
Mr. Moss?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett? Aye. Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
The next item on our agenda is Proclamation Mental Health Month.
So moved.
May 2018. There's a motion.
Second.
A second. Any discussion?
I would
Yes.
I would like to just paraphrase. I think because of all that is going on right now in our country and what has happened in our community, there are some important points in this resolution. I'm not going to read the resolution, but what I will do is read the points from it that I think are critical. First being, mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being. And all Americans experience times of difficulty and stress in their lives. And there is strong research showing that diet, exercise, sleep, and stress management can help all Americans protect their health and well-being. And mental health is no different from other chronic health conditions, such as high blood pressure, heart disease, or diabetes. With effective treatment, those individuals with mental health conditions can lead full and productive lives. And this is especially targeted not just to adults, but to our children. We're all part of a community where we can make our community stronger by watching out for all of our mental health challenges. And I think with everything that's going on, I just wanted to sort of point that out. And everyone has experiences problems, and we need to know that there are places and there's resources that we can go, or we can send our children to, or we can send our friends to, or our family members to. And it's the right thing to do. There shouldn't be a stigma about it, because mental health affects your physical health and your emotional health as well as it affects all those around you. And I just felt like I needed to say something, and that's pretty much it.
Well said.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Moss?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fitchikowski?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next item is proclamation for National Police Week, and Supervisor Fitchikowski is asked to read this proclamation. Supervisor Fitchikowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason I wanted to read this is I finished a career with the state police and never thought that I would know any fellow officers that lost their lives in the line of duty. That's something that always happens somewhere else. I know we've talked about that for a lot of tragedies, but to personally know several of them has really touched me, and that's why I'd like to read this. Proclamation, National Police Week, May 13th through 19th, 2018. Whereas the Congress and the President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week, to pay tribute to the law enforcement officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our country and to voice appreciation for all those who currently serve to protect the rights and freedoms of our citizens. And whereas during 2017, 128 law enforcement officers were lost in the line of duty, and to date this year, 39 officers have died. And whereas the law enforcement officers of the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office play an essential role in protecting the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Montgomery County, and whereas the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office wishes to honor those officers who lost their lives during 2017 and to remember those from Montgomery County who have also made the ultimate sacrifice. Officer Terry Griffith, Officer Scott Hilton, Security Guard Derek McFarland, Corporal Eric Sutphin, and Officer Derek Kraus. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia, that the Board of Supervisors calls upon all citizens of Montgomery County and all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 13th through the 19th, 2018, as National Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all citizens may join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who have bravely dedicated their lives to serving and protecting the citizens in their community. Be it further resolved, the Board of Supervisors calls upon all citizens of Montgomery County to observe Police Officers Memorial Day on May the 15th, I guess that's a typo, 2018, in honor of those law enforcement officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty, and let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Well read.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next, proclamation National Travel and Tourism Week.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Tuck?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next item on our business, County Attorney's Report.
No report, Mr. Chair.
Next item, County Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 3 items this evening. One, I sent this out in the Friday report to the board, but I also wanted to mention that the Commonwealth Transportation Board will conduct their public meeting on the 6-year road improvement program on May 10th at 4 p.m., and that's at the Holiday Inn Valley View. I bring that to folks' attention because that is an opportunity that day to see the projects that are in the Salem district that have been proposed for the 6-year road plan. We always have a couple of staff folks that attend, but I wanted to mention that to the general public as well. That's Thursday, May 10th at 4 p.m. at the Holiday Inn Valley View. I also wanted to share with the board, we have the most recent copy of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. This is a local government's guide that's produced through the Weldon Cooper Center and the Government Attorneys Group. I thought that would be nice for you to have. And lastly, I wanted to mention that for many years after I first became county administrator, I dreaded to see a letter from the animal shelter inspector because every letter that we got for several years had notices, violations, and pictures, and I spent, the late Steve Phillips and I ran out of creative ways to write letters back to the state. Got this letter last week, and it says there were no significant findings of non-compliance. I'm going to frame that and send it to Eileen because it took us a long time to get to that point. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right. And then Supervisor Fidzikowski.
I actually have no report.
Supervisor Biggs.
Okay, I think Mr. Motts is going to share something that we attended together, but I just had a question about Mr. White's concern. Is that something that, since it keeps going back and forth, is that something that could be taken to the town and county liaison meeting and discussed?
Absolutely.
Okay, and you'll let us know what happens there. And then the next thing, I want to remind everyone that the VACO County Official Summit meeting will be held August 16th and 17th. I believe they're looking maybe at Fredericksburg, but I'm not sure yet. It's in the planning stage, so just to put that on your calendar if you're interested. Thank you.
Supervisor Bone.
I also would like to echo what Mr. White brought up so that we attend to the concerns, the potential concerns there. They they flow right through District A. And I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. White out at the pump station a month or two ago and saw the sinkhole and saw the stream, and he explained a lot to me, and there's a lot of concerning issues that hopefully maybe there's something that we can do. I'd like to help. The other question that I have is Miss Reston brought up the no provision to slope, I'm going to say this wrong, sediment, you know, keep the sediment. Is there anything that we can, who do we bring up those issues to so that, you know, more erosion doesn't occur because they're not being careful?
DEQ.
And is that something that we just write a letter to DEQ?
We can talk to them verbally as well.
Okay. Would pictures be helpful if someone sends us pictures of the different
pictures we receive, we will forward straight to DEQ.
Okay. And then follow up. Okay. And that's it. Thank you.
Supervisor Shepherd.
No report.
Supervisor King.
No, I'd just like to thank this board for what they just did for the Reiner Fire Department. Not only will it benefit Reiner, it'll benefit the community as a whole. Thank you.
Supervisor DeMonts.
All right. I'll be as quick as possible for Todd's sake.
Are you done?
I'm not done yet. In each of your packets today, you had a little booklet like this on the back of it. It is autographed. I picked these up from the tourism event that Mary and I attended together on April the 17th. We had a viewing party of Eric the Travel Guy. He is a PBS, I guess he has a show on PBS called Eric the Travel Guy. He featured Montgomery County in one of his episodes. Mary and I thought to get you all an autograph, so save those. They'll be worth big bucks later on down the road. Irene and Lisa from the tourism department indicated that this episode has already been picked up to be shared in up to 100 different PBS markets. So that's great. There'll be a program about Montgomery County airing all over at least this coast, if not all over the United States, encouraging people to come and visit Montgomery County. So it was a really nice evening, and it was a very nice event that the tourism department put on at Frank's Theater to screen that show. Also, a couple of updates from the Montgomery County Improvement Council. This coming Saturday, April 28th, is the 35th anniversary of Broomin' and Bloomin'. Broomin' and Bloomin'. Sorry, I put the G's on the end. Broomin' and Bloomin'. Yeah. It's the 35th anniversary. Participants are volunteering to help various cleanup projects throughout Montgomery County. So it's pretty significant that this has been ongoing and well attended for 35 years. I believe the goal is for this board to do a bit of a celebration of the 35th year in advance of one of our future meetings, and then we'll have some statistics and pictures to share. Also, at the MCIC meeting, we talked extensively about the Green Government Challenge. That's the VACO award that I've been talking about for a while now. We're studying the tree canopy of Montgomery County and also public facility needs as they relate to sustainability. At this time, we have 82 of the 100 points necessary to receive the VACO Green Government Award. So that's a big deal. We're 18 points away, and the goal of the MCIC is to be able to get to 100 points this year so we can win the award at the VACO conference this year. So that would be very exciting. And then the last thing, I met last week for a few hours with Richard Shelton, and I met several members of his staff. He introduced me to Doris, Susan, Helen, Brenda, Pam, Lisa, and Norma, and all of them took me through the tasks associated with their jobs. And I wanted to make sure to mention my thanks for doing that. It was really very eye-opening. I learned a lot by spending a few hours in the treasurer's office, and they have all invited me to come back during their busiest time, which I promised them that I will come back and visit when they're really busy. And then I also wanted to pass along from Richard, this is the general fund's interest. He's given me this information. It has the interest collected in 2016, 17, and then the first quarter of 2018. Notable, 2016 we collected just under $300,000 of interest on deposits in the bank. In 2017 is when we got the higher interest rate of 1.5%. We got that midway through the second quarter. So for the whole year we collected $670,000 in interest, and then in the first quarter of 2018 we have $222,000 of interest already collected. So I did indicate to him that I would pass that along to all of you. So that's it.
A couple of things. First, I want to remind everybody that next Monday we will be having a joint meeting with the school board. That meeting will take place out at Falling Branch. As y'all well know, they've started opening up the expansion, and we did that without a tax increase. What we did tonight and taking that step forward to getting that fire station built, we did without a tax increase, and all of us can be proud of that. In regards to Mr. Shelton, it looks like the banking will be up in 2019. And I would be asking our board to send him a letter to put that banking out to bid at that point in time. I think that we need to send it, we don't have to approve it this evening, but we need to send that letter out sooner rather than later. One of the things that we've learned over these last few months is that there are a lot of different interest rates, and as April was going through, the difference between 0.5% and 1.5% when you're talking about millions of dollars is hundreds of thousands of dollars that is low-hanging fruit. And so what I would be asking, if there's a consensus, is to ask staff to draft up a letter that we would all eventually approve, asking him to put the banking out to bid within at least 6 months prior to that bid coming up in effect. So that gives plenty of time. I would also, as we have previously done, offered our staff up to help with the RFP that we go out. I don't see no reason why we wouldn't offer that again. And so that would be included in that letter. And so I guess I'm looking for consensus. I've got 3, 4, 5 for that letter. And so I'll go ahead and ask staff to go ahead and draft that, and then obviously we'll all put our 2 cents in as that letter comes through.
Couldn't we ask him what he planned on doing? I mean, have a little bit of communication before sending a letter out? I mean, since we've been talking about trying to enhance communication between, you know, constitutional officers and ourselves, I mean, wouldn't it be appropriate to maybe ask instead of sending a letter at first?
Well, we have asked him when he was previously here, and you'll recall that we offered our staff up previously. This is just to follow up what we did in 2016. So in the banking was it's up every year. It has just been renewed for another year, and it wasn't reasonable to try to put the banking out to bid here in April and expect to get banks to respond to that. But in my mind, a letter works very well. It communicates, and just like we sent a very nice letter to him asking him to conduct a tax sale. And so I would think that the letter would be very similar in nature.
Is there any reason why one of us wouldn't ask him?
Well, I have no problem in asking him. I think I asked him a couple of times when he was here the last time.
Yeah, that was pretty tough.
And so, you know, that's up to him. He doesn't have to put the banking out to bid if that's something he chooses not to do.
Do you have any objection if I or someone else?
But I still would like the staff to prepare a letter. That way, there's no misunderstandings. We are asking him, we're saying we will offer our staff up to help with the preparation of the RFP, and making it very clear that our board thinks that that is an important step. And we may find out that we've got the greatest deal in the world and that we shouldn't be getting interest on the first $8 million, and that's a bonanza for us, and then that 1.5% is great. But then you find out. So.
Have we had any word on the delinquent taxes yet?
If I recall correctly, he said that we would be getting some responses in the letters were going out. So
he has sent letters?
I don't know. He did say that letters would be going out at our last meeting that he was present. He said that they would be going out within the following couple of weeks, is what I heard. Is that correct? Okay. And so hopefully we'll be able to get an update on how that's coming along, and we'll be able to provide that to the schools and everybody in a very open and transparent way. So, other than those two items, that's all I've got. Is there anything else?
Yeah, just one more comment. This has to do more with when we as a board pass something, and I think it comes up, through, the staff or agenda thing or prep, whatever. If it's going to affect like a particular department or a particular constitutional office, I think it would probably be in our best benefit, since we're trying to have open communications, to make sure how that would affect that particular department or constitutional office before we just like pass it out front. And in particular, I was talking about the dog tags, which we passed, but we didn't really think about the timeline of it. But I understand it's it's being done and it's going well. But I didn't even think about that the normal dog tag fee is in, I guess it's in November.
And you may have not realized this, but staff actually reached out to Richard and met with him to see if they could even sell some of the dog tags out at the Animal Care and Adoption Center.
Right.
And that was rejected by him.
I'm just talking about, like when we pass something, like we passed the fee increase, that's what I'm referring to. I did find out, which I didn't know, that dog tags were sold in Blacksburg. So that was good to know. So you find out something new every day.
And I will say this, we did have a public hearing on that, and then we voted on it, so it was on our agenda twice.
Right, but I'm just thinking of citizens that, Chris, they probably didn't realize it until they got there to pay for the dog tags and the fee had gone up. It was just, but I think that opens a whole world of communication where it really helps us, to communicate better with everyone around. So.
Anything else?
The last meeting we had during the budget, I think that really went well. I mean, we discussed things. It went back and forth. I think it really went well.
Yeah.
I thought so too.
I thought I'd done good.
Well, Todd, giving yourself a star.
I know what you gentlemen deal with. Sure.